Hi, John with Etrailer. Today we're going to be taking a look at Air Lift's LoadLifter 5000 series on our 2020 Chevrolet Silverado 1500. If you use your truck like a truck, you know that every time you load it down, your truck kind of sags in the back, and you're going to get usually a terrible ride, and your headlights are going to be shooting up as you're going down the road. Air Lift load springs are going to bring your truck back to the factory ride height. It's going to be the most comfortable ride and the safest ride. For instance, on our truck today, this truck has already been outfitted with some great storage units in the back of this truck, and it came to us loaded down here. So we're going to get some measurements on it just to see what their normal day-to-day ride height looks like on this. Now up here at the front, we're just going to get some quick measurements. It's 39 inches from the ground running up the middle to the center of the wheel well. So 39 inches for the front. And at the rear back here, we're looking at 37.5. Now, that's not a lot between the front and the back, but it is enough to make a difference in ride quality and the headlight aim. Now, this is precisely why you should be considering Air Lift LoadLifters. You're not going to unload your truck every time you want to go camping and you hook up to your camper. This truck, also being a 1500, is more than capable of pulling our trailer today. This trailer comes in at 3,800 pounds, so tongue weight is approximately 10% of that. We're looking at a 380-pound tongue weight. And we can take a look and see what kind of effect the camper has had on our truck. And it's lowered our truck almost another 2 full inches. Now here up in the front, we'll get our measurement. And again, it's raised the front end almost 2 full inches as well. I don't have to tell you that not only is this going to be an uncomfortable ride, but the ride's not going to be very safe, especially if you're traveling at night. You're not going to be able to see things with your headlights shooting the birds up here. So now that we have our truck outfitted with our camper, let's take it on our test course, and we're going to go look at the obvious. Let's see how poor the ride actually is. As we go over our test course right here, it's pretty bouncy, and that's what I'm expecting though. The suspension wasn't really made as heavy duty, say, as the 3/4 and 1 ton trucks. These trucks ride like Cadillacs going down the road. So hooked up to our camper with weight in our bed already, we're hitting the internal, or we're hitting the jounce bumpers on our springs. We're bottoming the truck out. So these Air Lift LoadLifters are going to be a great option to restore the factory ride height back up. Now keep in mind, these aren't going to increase the amount of weight that we can carry. What it does do is it lets us carry this weight safely. This is what the load lifters are going to look like when they're installed on your truck here. These bags, this is a double convoluted design. I think it's a little bit better as far as like stability and everything else than a single bag design. It just gives it a little bit more rigidity, a little bit more strength. These bags are going to give you 5,000 pounds additional lifting force. Now that's not going to increase your weight carrying capacity on your truck. It's just going to help you carry that load more level. Now with the bags installed and the camper hooked up, we inflated the system to 76 PSI, which put us at a level ride height. Admittedly, they go from 0 to 100 PSI, and this was pretty much the perfect application for this. We had a lot of weight, and when we loaded up the camper the first time, we were probably just about an inch from the factory bump stops, and that's how much the system was sagging. Let's get some measurements now. Up here at the front, we're looking at 40 inches. And here at the back axle, still measuring in the center here, we're at the same as the front. That's 40 inches. That's going to be a huge improvement in ride quality and ride safety and stability. Let's go take it out on our test course to see how it handles bumps. Now, as we head to the test course, you'll notice this time around, I had put blue tape on one of the rear shock absorbers. That is where the truck height was sitting when it came in and we loaded it. You can see right now on the footage, it's considerably higher. And I could tell just before we even go over these speed bumps, the ride view, everything, it's not pointing towards the sky. Let's go ahead and hit some bumps here. And you can also see on the footage here, the truck is just going to be handling this weight much better. Everything is back into its stock height position. What that means for the suspension is the way that it was designed, all of the geometry of it, it has room to jounce and rebound now like it's supposed to. Again, these aren't going to help us haul more weight, but with this truck, the way that it's loaded right now, with all the weight in the bed and then the weight of the camper on the back, it's just going to ride so much better, and it is too. These bumps are much like speed bumps out there on the road, but you know, it's not too stiff either. It's just riding almost like the weight isn't there. You're also going to get increased stability side to side going down the highway. Now, of course, that's going to depend on what type of tires you have on your truck, whether or not they're high sidewalls or not. But all in all, this was a great improvement for this ride. Now, as far as installation goes on our Chevy, there's a couple things you need to know. This is not a Trail Boss or an AT4. There's different steps if you have that package or if you have a fifth wheel on your Silverado. Otherwise, this was a Duramax Silverado 1500 4x4, and it installed pretty easy for airbags. We install a lot of them here, and there's different makes and models where we have to do some cutting. This is something you can absolutely do if you're pretty proficient with tools, if you have a jack stand and a floor jack. It's really something you can handle either on your driveway or in your garage. This one installed pretty quick here for us, and if you want to see how we did it, stick around. We'll show you step by step. All right, now we've got our truck in our shop right here. Now we have it up on the lift, but this job actually you can do in your driveway. And when you do it in your driveway, you want to jack the truck up by the frame. Of course, remove your spare tire and the heat shield, and that'll give you enough room under here to work. But jack your truck up by the frame, and then make sure that your axle is hanging. That's going to give you extra room to get in here. So you don't just want to jack it up by the axle here. You know, if you need to, you can jack it up here and then put some jack stands on the frame, just as long as this axle is relaxed. That's what we need to do. Now let's get to the first step. Now on the driver's side here, we're going to have a bracket for the rear brake lines. We need to remove these two screws. They're 13 millimeter. Now the two factory screws you can discard, because in your kit you're going to get two of these longer screws and some spacer blocks like this. And what we're going to do is you just take the spacer blocks and the new bolts, then line these up and simply bolt this bracket back down. The new fasteners are also 13 millimeter. There's no torque specs on these, just snug them up, just the same as they were before. Then we'll come to the factory jounce bumper. Up inside of here, we have a 10 millimeter bolt. You'll need a deep socket and a small extension. Now you can pull these off and set them off to the side. We're not going to be reinstalling these. The new air springs actually have jounce bumpers just like this on the inside. Now we're still on the driver's side. We're on the front side of the axle though, closer to the front of the truck. And you're going to have two T40 bolts that we need to remove for this wire harness. You have one here. You're going to have one closer to the wheel on the top side here. Next, we'll come to the rear of the axle. You'll see the brake line bracket right here. This is a 13 millimeter bolt. We're going to remove this. But hang on to that bolt, because in your kit, you're going to get a bracket like this, two stainless steel washers, a nylock nut, and a bolt. What we're going to be doing is extending this bracket down. So, like this. This is going to make room for the airbags. So I'll loosely reinstall the factory bolt. Take stainless steel flat washer, run that through your brake line bracket, and then another flat washer on the back and the nylock nut. Now you can see a tab where the factory bracket kind of attached up here, so make sure you're not left or right. Try to keep that as straight as possible, just like the factory had it. And you'll torque these right here to the specs that you're going to find in your installation manual. Then we'll come to the front side of the driver's side axle again. This is the bracket that you're going to need. This is a lower bracket, and I do want to mention that one of the nice things about this kit, and it's just because of the Silverado, I suppose, none of these brackets are side specific. It doesn't matter. None of these brackets are going to be only for the left side or only for the right side. That's kind of a nice thing to note. Now, we'll take the notch side like this. That's going to be facing up. We're going to loop it underneath this mount and just let it hang right here, just like that. Okay, so let's build the bag before we put it up on the truck. Now, like I said, these are not side specific to left and right, but there is a way that we have to build it. So you'll see the way that this is cut. This is going to be our bottom bracket here. We're going to flip this over, and we'll take one of the carriage bolts, and this is for the driver's side. Passenger side is going to be a mirror image. So it's not a bad idea to build these bags at the same time. And there's pictures and diagrams in the instructions, but we'll put a carriage bolt right here. And once we have the carriage bolt there, we'll look at the bag. On one side of the bag, we have 2 holes, and the other we're going to have 3. This is going to be the air line for the bag itself. So we'll take the bag, and we're going to be using these holes right here. So we'll take one of the roll pans here, and it doesn't matter on this one what side the large circle goes on. So it can go right here. We'll set the bag in like this. You can take the lower bracket, make sure that you have the carriage bolt through like this before we put this on. And you'll take these 2 flathead bolts, just kind of line everything up, and once you get them started, you can torque them to the specs that you're going to find in your installation manual. These are 7/32 Allen head. So once everything is torqued here, this is what it should look like so far. You're going to have the carriage bolt over on this side. It's going to be opposite of the airline fitting on the other side. Now, in your kit, you will have that airline fitting that we need to install. Just install it finger tight first, as far as you can go with your fingers, and then go around 1.5 turns. So think of a clock where you're going to start right here and go 1.5 times. That's it. Next, we'll attach the upper roll plate, large hole. It's going to go over the airline, and then the upper bracket. Kind of see the notch in here, and it's just going to sit on this like this. And then as far as the hardware in your kit, you're going to use the supplied bolt, lock washer, and then flat washer. You can go ahead and snug them up and then torque them to the specs that you're going to find in your installation manual. Now we can take the assembly that we just built. The carriage bolt that we installed will be on the rear of the vehicle here. So we're going to set this up here. Keep in mind, don't be easy on your brake lines here as you go up. If you need more room, you could always compress this a little bit. With the axles hanging, this really isn't too bad. There's quite a bit of room to work here. Now on the front side, remember the bracket that we installed up here. This notch is going to go into this tab here. Just like this. Then you could take one of the carriage bolts in your kit and insert that right there, and then take one of your flange nuts right here and just loosely put it on for right now, just to hold everything in place. Now we're back to the back side of the rear axle here on the driver's side, and we'll take our bracket that came with the kit. You'll notice it too has a tab on it. This is going to lock in up here. So this goes between your brake line and the axle. Make sure you lock the tab in. It's really not that difficult. And then take another carriage bolt. You can send it down. You can already have one in there as well. So just make sure all your tabs are locking in. And then from your kit, 2 more flange nuts, and just run them up right now to hold everything in place. So just make sure everything clears up on top and that we're not hitting everything on the bottom. You know, if it does interfere with something, it's not a big deal, but for right now, we're going to set this. Everything looks good. We'll torque all 3 of these to the specs that we find in our installation manual. And we could take the U-bolts that come with the kit along with the 4 flange nuts that you'll have here. Now, the U-bolts are going to go over your frame. Like this. And on the inside brackets, you already have holes that they're going to line up to. So they may not reach just yet. We're going to line these up a little bit, and we're going to lower the truck down onto the axle, and we'll keep a close eye on these, make sure they line up. And then once they are lined up, we can get these flange nuts on, and we'll torque them to the specs in our installation manual. Now, if the truck's low enough, we can get these flange nuts started, and then we'll lower the truck all the way down so that it's resting on the axle with its full weight, and then we can torque these to the specs in our installation manual. Now, to properly torque these to the specs in your installation manual, you're either going to need a crow's foot attachment, or you could cut this section of bolt underneath it and get a swivel with a regular socket on there. In this instance, I'm just going to be using the crow's foot. Then just repeat that for both sides. Now, before we run the air lines, we'll come back up to the front where we took out these Torx bits, and we can replace them here and here. Now, they're going to be a little bit out of place, so you may have to pull back on the bracket a little bit to get them started. Now, with the installation, as far as the installation goes, with the bag assembly, we're done on this side. So you can go ahead and repeat the same process on the other side. It really is exactly like this. The only thing we don't have to worry about is the brake line bracket. Now, the next step is going to be to actually run the air lines. And this kit comes set up as a dual pass system. What that means is each bag is going to be independent, and you're going to have 2 air inlet points that you could mount on your truck somewhere. One of the popular spots is back here on the back bumper, either by the license plate or somewhere around the license plate, and that's where we're going to be going today. Now, if you want to have a single pass system where you only have one input and both bags would have the same pressure in them, there is a T that we have available here on our website. And this makes it just a little bit easier for maintenance and to worry about your air pressures. Unless you haul off-center loads a lot, or if you have a slide-in camper where the weight of your load would be heavier on one side than the other, then a dual path system would work for you. Otherwise, I like the single path. It's less connections, and it's just less to worry about. So I'm going to run these airlines right now, and I'm going to show you the path that I took to get back here to the bumper. So I've got the line running. I just wanted to show you exactly what I did. We'll start up here on the passenger side. The air inlet is facing towards the wheel, and that's on both sides, but I just ran it up to the top and I zip tied it to the U-bolt. These nylon lines, you don't want them to vibrate when you go down the road. They end up hitting something and they'll end up developing a leak. So up here, we went above the heat shield. This exhaust is hot, not good for nylon line. We ran over. Like I said, this is going to be a single pass system, so this is where I've got the T zip tied to this existing electrical line, and then we did the same hookup over here on the driver's side. Just ran it up, zip tied it at the top, and we're meeting right here at the T. Now we're going to run back to the back of the car. They already had this electrical line running through, so I just kind of tucked it in with it. It was convenient. We ran it up and over, back, and then out to the rear bumper. Now with all of our connections made, now's the time that we're going to air the system up between 40 and 60 psi. We're going to check for leaks, and the best way to do that is just some soapy water solution. So we can start right here at the Schrader valve. And that looks fine. Any leaks that we have are going to be large bubbles. And it would become immediately apparent. So we're going to move to the inside of the truck here. Underneath here at the three-way, we're going to have three sections that again, these all look good. We would have large bubbles, much like if you're blowing bubbles. And the last two places you want to check are actually at the bags themselves, at the connections, which they're really going to be hard to see on camera, but if you're having trouble, you can look through the fender well and underneath and take a look and make sure. That's what we're going to be doing. With your system checked for leaks, really the only steps left are going to be to replace your heat shield and then put your spare tire back up underneath the truck. And that was a look at Air Lift's LoadLifter 5000 series on our 2020 Chevrolet Silverado 1500.